The Clockmaker's Secret, Part 2, The Price of Time. Felix's footsteps echoed through the ancient stone halls of the tower. Each step he took felt heavier than the last, as if the very air was thick with the weight of time itself. The key burned in his pocket, a constant reminder of the price he was paying. "I can't stop now," Felix whispered to himself. But doubt crept in. The first memory had been painful enough. What would happen if he lost more? He paused before a grand door at the end of the hallway. It was magnificent, covered in strange symbols, much like the key. He knew what this door was. The final door. "You've come far, Felix," the woman's voice echoed through the tower, though she was nowhere to be seen. "But every choice has its price. You've unlocked so much already. Do you still want to unlock the final truth?" Felix took a deep breath. "I need to know. I need to fix it. Time is broken, and only I can fix it." His hand shook as he lifted the key. This time, he hesitated. Could he really go through with it? Could he pay the price? "You've already paid," the woman's voice whispered. "And you'll pay again. But if you succeed, the world will be yours to shape." Felix closed his eyes. The pain from the last memory loss still lingered, but there was no turning back now. He turned the key in the lock. Click. The door opened with a creak, revealing a room bathed in golden light. At the center of the room stood an enormous clock, its hands frozen at midnight. The clock was magnificent, covered in ancient carvings, and its ticking could be heard, faint and distant, as if it was waiting. The woman appeared before him, standing by the clock. Her ethereal presence radiated sadness and longing. "Felix, it's time." Felix approached the clock slowly. His heart raced as he looked into the woman's eyes. "What do I need to do?" She pointed to the clock. "You must turn the hands of time. Set them back to where they belong. But be warned, each turn costs you more." Felix took a deep breath. His heart pounded as he reached for the golden hands of the clock. They felt warm to the touch, but also fragile, like they could crumble at any moment. He began to turn the clock's hands. Tick, tock. The first turn was easy, but with each turn, the weight in his chest grew. Tick, tock. His vision blurred. His memories flickered. The sound of his mother's voice, soft, like a whisper, faded. The laughter of his childhood was gone. Tick, tock. Felix's hands shook. He could feel his identity slipping away. Every turn of the clock stole a piece of him, and with each piece lost, the room seemed to become darker, colder. The light dimmed. "Keep going, Felix." The woman's voice urged him on. "The world depends on you." Felix knew she was right. The world was broken. Time was broken. But at what cost? He turned the hands again. Tick, tock, tick, tock. With the final turn, the clock shattered. The room exploded in blinding light. Felix stumbled back, unable to see. When the light finally faded, Felix opened his eyes. He was no longer in the tower. He was back in his workshop. But something was different. The shop felt empty. The air was still, as if time itself was holding its breath. Felix looked around, expecting to see the ancient clock. But it was gone. The portal was gone. Everything was gone. Except for the key. He picked it up from the table, feeling its cool metal in his hand. But as he looked at it, he realized he couldn't remember how to use it. His mind was blank. The memories, his memories, were gone. His life, his past, all the moments that made him who he was, had slipped away. He touched his face, searching for a familiar feeling. Was this who he really was? Or had he become a stranger to himself? But there was one thing he remembered. He had fixed time. The world outside his window had returned to normal, moving once more. Time flowed. The clocks ticked. Everything was as it should be. Felix walked out of his shop into the streets, the sun shining brightly. He looked around, seeing the familiar faces, but they didn't recognize him. He didn't know them. He wasn't sure if they had ever existed at all. And yet, there was a sense of peace. Time had been set right. The price had been paid. But Felix had no choice but to accept the loss. The clockmaker had repaired time, but in doing so, he had lost his own. The end.